Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today's video is going to be my May reading wrap up part 1. I've actually had to break this up into 2 parts because this month I managed to read 10 books. Don't ask me how I did it. I'm not complaining. I think I was just reading consistently, and I was also reading books that kept me engaged. I also did 2 buddy reads, which always helps, and I think I did 2 audiobooks. So all of those kind of combined to 10 books, which I'm really happy about. I also managed to do a few book reviews this month, so that will help with the length of these wrap-ups, hopefully. So I'm going to get started because I have 5 books to talk to you about today. The first 2 books I want to talk about are 2 books that were really highly anticipated for me. My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante and The Good People by Hana. And I did a dual book review for these, so I'll have that linked up at the top. I also kind of like combined it into a discussion video about unlikable characters because both of these books feature unlikable characters. I'm not really going to go into too much about these books because I think everybody here on BookTube, well, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about My Brilliant Friend, which is about 2 young girls growing up in 1950s Naples, Italy, and their complex friendship. And then The Good People by Hana, that one's about, well, it's based on a true story about a widow named Nora who, after her husband dies and her daughter dies, she takes in her daughter's son, Michael, who she believes is a fairy, and so she enlists the help of the town kind of healer who has the knowledge of the good people, and together they're going to save Michael. So that's what that book is about. I go into more depth in my dual book review, so check those out. Basically, I gave The Good People 3.5 stars, and then I gave My Brilliant Friend 4 stars. I ended up enjoying My Brilliant Friend quite a bit, which was a nice surprise because usually with really hyped up books, I just don't have any luck, but this was one of those instances where I really enjoyed the story. The second book was an audiobook, and that was I'll Be Gone in the Dark by McNamara. And this is a true crime book that's been going around BookTube and just the literary world in general because this book is all about the East Area rapist, and recently he was actually apprehended and there's like a trial going on right now, so this book had the best timing. Michelle was a journalist slash writer, and this was a book that she was working on in the last few years of her life. So this book is just kind of her personal attachment to the story of the East Area rapist and kind of her investigation into what is really a cold case. Well, now it's being reopened, but at the time she was writing this book, it was a cold case, and it was a case that nobody had been able to crack and nobody had found this guy. But she came up with the idea of using one of those websites where you kind of find out your genealogy, where you find out your ancestry and you kind of like submit your DNA or whatever. One of those websites. Well, she came up with the idea in her book to use those kind of databases to try to find out who this guy was, and that's exactly what they did, and that was how they were managed, or that's how they managed to find the East Area rapist. So anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really informative, and I really loved Michelle's writing style. It's really engaging and personal, and I really like that. However, I could also see that there were editors that kind of came in to fill in the gaps after she passed, and you can tell that there's some disjointed parts in the book, and the book is unfinished. You know, they managed to kind of wrap it up as best as they could, but Michelle was not able to finish it, and you can tell, and that's why I'm not able to give this book more than like a 3.5 stars, which is what I ended up giving it, because as the book stands, as it is right now, it is unfinished and it is disjointed. I believe if Michelle had the chance to actually complete it, I really think it would have been a 5-star read, but I had to rate the book as it is now and not as I wished it could be, or, you know, I didn't want to give it a rating for its potential. It's kind of the best way that I can describe it. That doesn't mean that it's not good and that you shouldn't give it a try if you're into true crime, but because it's unfinished, I cannot compare it to other true crime novels, which are a lot better and more cohesive. So I finished that audiobook. I do recommend the audiobook. It was excellent. I'll have all the audiobook information in the description box. The next book I want to talk about is The Oracle Year by Charles Soule, and I'm not going to talk too much about this book because I just did a review. It's a short spoiler-free review about this book, so if you're interested in it, then check that out. I'll link it up in the cards at the top. And this is basically a story about a man named Will Dando. He's a struggling musician in New York City, and one day he wakes up from a dream where 108 predictions were revealed to him. And so when he wakes up, he has all of this knowledge. And so the book deals with what he decides to do with that knowledge and kind of like a chase for finding out the truth about these predictions. I really was attracted to this book because of the premise. I thought it was really unique. But in the end, I gave this book 3 stars. It's a solid book. It's just not a book that I'll be remembering 6 months from now or really recommending to people. This book also reads a lot like a TV show or a movie, and I kind of have this pet peeve about books like that. I feel like if you were going to have me read a book that could be a TV show, I would rather just watch the TV show, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on this, then check out my review. And finally, I'm going to talk about, I have so many feelings about this book. This is going to be a rambling mess, I'm sure, and a nightmare to edit, but I just have to get my thoughts out about this book, and that's No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. This is a book all about a man named Llewellyn Moss. One day he's out hunting and he stumbles across what appears to be a drug trade gone bad. Everybody's dead, and he kind of follows like a blood trail and finds a man with a case of money. Llewellyn decides to take the case. It's against his better judgment. He knows that it's not going to lead anywhere good, but he decides to take it. So then the town sheriff, Sheriff Bell, arrives at the scene and figures out that there's, something going on. And so like a manhunt ensues. There's a third character named Chigger, and he is a very interesting person. He has a very unique set of values. He believes that life is a game of chance, and so he uses a coin toss to determine certain things. And he's after the case as well. Just out of principle, he wants to get it back. And so there's this love triangle going on between Sheriff Bell, Chigger, and Moss. So that's what the book is about. This is clearly a play on the typical Western genre. McCarthy kind of turns that on its head. Nothing that would happen in a Western or a typical Western is going to happen in this book. So Sheriff Bell is a sheriff who has been at the job for a really long time, but he sees that he doesn't really belong in this world. In the old days, the sheriff didn't even need to carry a gun, and he was able to solve all kinds of crimes. And nowadays, everything's super complicated. There's like a gray moral line, and so he doesn't know what to really do in this world. So he has a lot of monologues where he's describing kind of this whole concept. And then we also get the point of view of Moss, and we kind of follow Moss as he tries to hide from both the sheriff and Chigger. And then we also follow Chigger and his kind of like how he's tracking Moss and how he's finding out where he is. And so none of this ends well. I think what I want to stress with this book is that while I love the idea behind the book and I can see what McCarthy was trying to do, and I can appreciate, I can appreciate the symbolism and kind of the twist on the Western genre, I just could not give it a full 4 stars because I felt like it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. And also we get the point of view of Moss and Bell, but we never get really inside of Chigger's head. We only can kind of piece together his beliefs based on the discussions that he has with the characters. And so I felt like I was missing that piece. And then also there's a scene towards the end of this book that's very important and deals with one of our main characters, and we as the reader never see it. We just hear about it after the fact, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, these are very important moments in the story, and McCarthy decided, I guess, not to include that in the book for some reason. So I was just really frustrated with the book because I've seen the movie. I think this is one of the few instances, and I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I'm just gonna say it, the movie was better than the book. And I think the movie was better than the book because this book is typical McCarthy, is very simple and stripped down. You as the reader kind of have to fill in the gaps, and I love that about his writing style, but that doesn't really work for an action plot. In the movie, we can kind of get those action parts, get the dialogue, get everything. So this is one of those few instances where I felt like the movie was so well done, a great adaptation of this story, and elevated the story without taking away from the original material. So yes, I have a lot of feelings about this. I'm very conflicted. This definitely won't be the last McCarthy that I read by any means. I still love him. I just didn't love how he wrote this book. So those are all the books that I'm going to be talking about in this wrap up. Let me know down in the comments what you read this month, or if there was any book that stood out to you. This month kind of started off on a rocky start, but it ended up being a lot better towards the end. So I cannot wait to talk to you guys about the next 5 books on the list. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.